Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, listeners. This is your host, Andy Curry, and I am excited today to have Jennifer de St. George with me. She has been speaking professionally since the mid-'70s, and the content she speaks on is very diverse. One is teaching dental practice management. The other one that she's very passionate about is helping speakers become better speakers. Jenny speaks in the U.S. and internationally. She is based out of California. She has written approximately 300 published articles. So, Jenny, welcome to the program.
Andy, thank you for your invitation.
We are very happy to have you here with us, Jenny. Now, of course, you teach and speak on two different things, the dental practice and helping the speakers become better speakers. So let's start off with your dental practice for a little bit, and then we'll move into the speakers. So when you're speaking on dental practice management and such, what goes on there when you're doing that?
Okay. It's when I joined the National Speakers Association, NSA, in the mid-'80s, 83, and I first became a new member, people would say, "What do you speak on?" And I said, "Dental practice management." And you could see them freeze. And I graciously would say, "Well, what would you speak on?" And they say communication or sales or marketing. And it's been very interesting. I just came back from the latest NSA meeting, our annual conference in July in D.C. And of course, everybody finally is realizing that you cannot be all things to all people at all times. And now I would say the big thrust in the speaking business is to become focused. I'd rather be a big fish in a little pond than a little fish in a big pond. So in my field, in dentistry, people just say, "Let's have Jenny." So I don't work with speakers bureaus, because if you are niche like that, or niche, as we'd say in Europe, then your reputation goes before you. And how I got into speaking in dentistry is very interesting, and I'll make this short, but it might help the entrepreneurs who are your listeners. When my former husband, he is from Paris and I'm from London, we met in San Francisco and he was going through dental school. And 2 weeks after he graduated, we got married. And then 6 months after that, we started our initial practice, our dental practice. And on the first day, as we opened the door, he looked at me and said very sweetly, "Why don't you answer the phone, dear, for the first 2 or 3 weeks till I actually find somebody who knows what they're doing?" Because obviously I had no background. I came from a professional dancer and I came from the business world. I used to work for J. Walter Thompson and some other big corporations. And over a period of years, Andy, I just ran the business. I mean, he gave me the dental practice and it was like my dental lab. And so I just ran it as it made sense to me. And my tagline, and I'm a great believer in every entrepreneur having a tagline for their business, their speaking business. Mine is called Dental Practice Management, based on common sense and logic, ! And so I just brought in my business common sense and logic, and that's how I ran a dental practice. And so one of the things I always say to the speakers that I'm coaching is an audience can tell within seconds if you have walked the talk that you're asking your audiences to come along with. So while I've never worked in another dental office, I've never assisted at the chair ever, did it once for about 2 seconds, saw all the blood and backed out. I still can fly around the world teaching the management of dentistry just using common sense and logic.
That's fascinating. So you never stuck your hand in anybody's mouth or sucked out the saliva?
Nope. I went back there once, and after about 3 seconds, I said, "You do this for a living? Count me out." I backed out of the treatment room and never went back.
I don't blame you. Well, when you were learning, the management stuff, surely you had hurdles you had to get over and mistakes were made, but that's, of course, you're all going to make mistakes, and that's how you get better.
And that's how you learn. But I didn't learn by looking at how other people did it. I worked it out for myself. And if I made a mistake, I thought, well, that didn't work. So what can I do so that I don't do that again? So I did not go and copy other people. And as a speaker and as an entrepreneur, I'm very passionate about this. I think there are about 3% of us in the world who are creators. I'm being a little stereotype here, and about 97% who repackage other people's stuff. And if one can become a creator, I think the gift you bring to your audiences is that you not only show them what should be done, but you can give them the logic behind it. So when they meet something or a problem that was not covered in your program, if you've taught them the philosophy and the protocol and common sense, they can begin to solve their own problems, and that gives them confidence.
Interesting. Well, let's move to the speakers, making speakers a better speaker. I know you're very passionate about that. So are you going around speaking on that now, or is it a coaching thing that you're doing?
Yes, I am. Yes. Yeah, it's me. I'm doing some coaching now, but it actually started with speaking. And last year, I spoke in London, Munich, and Paris to the National Speakers Association of each of those countries. So I started by speaking, and as a result of that, now people are calling me up and saying, can you give me some one-on-one basic common sense and logic? Because I sort of do have a different approach. Okay.
Can you describe your approach a little bit?
Well, if I may, and this could be a shaggy dog story, Andy, I'll try and keep it in for less than 60 seconds, but it's a story. The only time I ever tell this story is to fellow speakers. Like every speaker listening, one is picked up by one's host, or they take you out for dinner the night before, and they always say, well, how did you get into speaking? Because as I'm sure you know, the number one fear of Americans is public speaking. Above death and paying taxes, speaking in front of other people is the number one fear. So they always want to say or ask a speaker, how did you become a speaker? How did you get into this business? And I always say the same thing. Long story, give them a nice smile, and I move on. But when a speaker asks me that story, I will always tell them, because I think it helps speakers. Bottom line, going back to the dental practice, after many years of never talking to anybody how to run the practice, sorting it out, in my opinion, what was best for me, I got a flyer one day from a San Francisco seminar company, and it said, come to the meeting at the Jack Tar Hotel in San Francisco and pay $100, and we'll teach you everything you need to know about how to ask patients for money. And the number one fear for anybody in healthcare is talking to patients about the cost of health care. It's none of us feel comfortable with that. So I thought, this is just what I need. So I get in the car and I roll up to the program. At the end of the day, I walked to the gentleman who owned the company, and I said, I want my money back. And he said, why? And I said, your speaker was bad and her information was not right. And he looked to me and he said, oh, are you a speaker? And I said, no. And he said, have you ever spoken before? And I said, no. And he said, do you really think you can do better than she did? And I said, and forgive me for using the word, but this is exactly what I said. I looked at him, I said, I sure as hell couldn't be any worse.
And
so he said,
go ahead.
So he said, give me your business card. And he said, I'll call you. So we exchanged business cards. I went back to the practice. I put his card in front of me, and I waited for 3 months. He never called. I basically got so pissed. I bought a mailing list. I hired a hotel. I designed a brochure and a flyer, took $6,000 out of my savings account, mailed it to every dentist in the San Francisco Bay Area, and about 250 people walked in paying $145, and that's how I started in the speaking business.
No kidding.
Just went for it. No kidding.
Now, did you sit down and come up with an outline and practice before you did that?
Well, I mean, I didn't practice it in front of anybody. Very perceptive question. I spent 3 weeks. In theory, what I really did, Andy, is I wrote a book. So when I got up on the stage, I had a book. And I only read from the book for about 15 minutes. And I just thought, this makes no sense. So I put the book down, but because I knew the material, I just went right for it. So from then, I don't use PowerPoint. I use what I call a workbook. So I have a delineated workbook, and any key point I want to make, I might have a sentence in there, but I leave blank one key word so the audience can never get ahead of me. Nobody can ever come in and steal my stuff in the back of the room. So that way they don't have to read the PowerPoint, look at the PowerPoint, listen to me, look at me. They can just focus on me. They can focus on their workbook. And so at the end of my programs, they've got a blueprint of what they need to do. And they tell me they keep these things for 15 and 20 years. And that all started by giving them information in what I thought was an unstructured way. So I thought, I'm never doing that again. So I try and design material so it's very easy to assimilate.
Fascinating. Now, because you don't use a PowerPoint, are you against using them, or is it just something you just never really thought would be useful? Another
good question, and I've been seeing this now in NSA for maybe the last couple of years. I've been seeing it in Europe as well, and that is there is finally a movement away from PowerPoint, because there is a sense from some meeting planners that, as one meeting planner told me, it gives a bad speaker permission to stand up on the stage and read the PowerPoint. So I don't like PowerPoint because I like to communicate with the audience. If I'm on a stage, and I've got 700 people in the room, I'm most probably on the floor walking up and down the aisles with a handheld mic, communicating with my audience. I don't want to be stuck with the screen. I just find it too confining. I mean, it's hard to talk about communication when the lights are down and we're all reading PowerPoint. But, there's no right or wrong. Now, if I was a physician or dentist with x-rays, or if I was a CPA showing stats, an absolute reason to have PowerPoint. But then they must remember, when they're not actually referring to the data on the screen, to make the screen dark so that the focus comes back to the speaker. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, okay, interesting. And how long ago did you start the coaching for speakers?
I had done it sort of complimentary. I mean, I backed into it because I've sort of been doing it for years and years. But it most probably became serious for me 12 years ago when our local chapter started a teaching academy. And so suddenly I had the ability to have the same students for 11 months. And then that's when I really got excited. So it started 11 or 12 years ago.
Okay. And does your way of doing it seem to translate well over to other students? Have you found?
Yes, and that's also a very good question, because there are different ways, more so when working with speakers, I think, than working with dentists and staff or business people. To be a speaker is a very personal approach. There are coaches, it's not my style, who will teach every nuance, every step, every word. In other words, it becomes like an Oscar-winning performance, particularly the speakers who do a keynote. They'll have the audience in the palm of their hand for about 60 minutes. And in those 60 minutes, they've captivated the audience and they leave. My idea of speaking is to hold an audience all day. I joke to my coaching speakers, until you've held an audience all day in New Jersey, a large audience in New Jersey all day and never lost control once, only then can you call yourself a professional speaker.
Now, why New Jersey?
Well, because they are the toughest. I love Q&As. I mean, I was in New Jersey one time and the dentist disagreed with me. So he just actually walked up on the stage and he actually went to remove the mic from my hand so he could take me on with my microphone in his hand on my stage.
Really?
So I said, well, that's very interesting, doctor. I paid for the room. I paid for the microphone. I paid for the stage. I'll give you 60 seconds. And at the end of the 60 seconds, go back to your seat and you buy the bottle of wine and I'll meet you in the bar at 5 o'clock and we'll continue. Everybody loved it. So I love Q&As. I love Q&As. And so it's just a different approach. Some people really like the keynote and being away from the audience. I like to just get into the trenches and have fun with them.
Well, that sounds fascinating. It's been a joy to talk with you, Jenny. I've not run across someone of your caliber and teaching it like you do. That's been a lot of fun.
Can I make two quick comments?
Please.
One of the things that speakers suffer from, as do dentists, and having been married to two dentists, I can say this, I am a recovering perfectionist. As a recovering perfectionist will never be cured, it means our middle name is procrastinator. Mm-hmm. There are so many speakers who don't have a product, or they don't have an audio program, or they haven't written an ebook, or some of them may not even want to do a new subject because they're so frightened of not having it perfect. So any entrepreneur has to really battle against their high standards. 90% of something is better than 100% of nothing.
Great advice.
And then the other comment I would make, and again, I know I'm very unusual, but I want the entrepreneurs to think this through. As a speaker, I actually sold my speaking business. I used to have 8 consultants and 7 corporate employees who just looked after me. I actually sold my speaking business to a third largest company in dentistry, who then was actually purchased by one of the largest global companies. But people will hear, oh, if you're a speaker, you can't sell your business because you are your business. If you create product and you create teaching programs and you have a philosophy that other people can put into place, you do have something to sell. So never, for those listening who are thinking outside the box, don't let anybody hold you back and say, oh, if you went off the cliff tomorrow, you have no business. You can build your business to be sellable if you do it correctly.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jenny, for that information. Fantastic. Now, if people want to know more, want to hear you speak, how do they get a hold of you, Jenny?
The website is, speakercoachpro.com.
SpeakerCoachPro.
And pro.com. And I have an 800 number, 800-393-2207. And I'm presuming you don't have anybody in the dental field. And if they do, you can just Google my name and I jump out all over the place. So I'm very easy to find.
Okay. Well, Jenny, thank you so much for giving us your insights and your wisdom and your years of experience. That was a lot of fun.
And thank you so much for the invitation. The pleasure was all mine.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.